You lied to me about everything. And my son is the one who's going to pay for it. Before we go any further, I need to ask you something. If someone hid their entire life from you on purpose, could you ever trust them again? Tell me in the comments. And if you believe love is more than money, hit subscribe, because this story will test that belief. Now let me take you back to where it all started. 3 months earlier, Austin, Texas, the kind of city where tech money meets food trucks and live country music, where you can see a Tesla parked next to a dusty pickup truck. Daniel Brooks owned half of a skyline most people didn't even realize existed. At 39, he had built a software security company that sold for more money than he could spend in a lifetime. He owned a modern glass house in Westlake Hills. He drove a modest SUV. He wore simple jeans and boots. He also hadn't been on a real date in 4 years. Not since his wife passed away. On paper, Daniel was a dream. Wealthy, stable, devoted father. In real life, he was careful. Too careful. Every blind date followed the same script. He showed up in worn sneakers, parked 3 blocks away so no one saw the car, told women he worked in tech support, said he rented a small place outside the city. And he watched. Some smiled politely but lost interest fast. Some asked subtle questions about future goals. A few left early when they realized there was no luxury attached to him. It confirmed what he already believed. Money changed how people loved you. He refused to let it touch his son. 8-year-old Mason was the only thing in Daniel's world that mattered. Every morning, Daniel packed his lunch himself. Turkey sandwich, apple slices, a handwritten note tucked inside. He dropped him off at a private elementary school without ever mentioning who funded half the library. "See you at practice?" Mason asked one afternoon, hopping out of the SUV. "Wouldn't miss it," Daniel said. And he never did. At night, after Mason fell asleep, Daniel sat alone at his long kitchen island scrolling through dating apps his sister insisted he try. "You can't hide forever," she had told him over Sunday barbecue in Round Rock. "Mason needs to see you happy." Happy felt risky. Still, he agreed to another blind date. This one was different. Not arranged through an app. His assistant's cousin worked at a small diner off South Congress. Said her friend needed a break from men who flex too much. Daniel almost laughed at that. He picked a Thursday night. The diner was old-school American. Red booths, neon signs, a jukebox in the corner that hadn't worked since 2008. And that's where he saw her. Clara Hayes. She wasn't dressed up. Just jeans, a simple blouse, hair pulled back. She stood behind the counter laughing with another waitress, wiping down coffee mugs. She looked grounded. When their eyes met, she didn't scan his watch, didn't glance at his shoes. She just smiled. And something about that smile made him uneasy, because for the first time, Daniel didn't feel in control of the story he was about to tell. He walked in ready to pretend. He had no idea she'd already survived things money couldn't fix. And before the night was over, one small question from her would start unraveling everything he thought he knew about wealth. But neither of them knew that yet. They only knew this was just another blind date. Or so he thought. Clara slid into the booth across from him, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "So," she said with an easy smile, "I hear you work in tech support." Daniel nodded. "Yeah, mostly back-end stuff. Nothing exciting." He had said that line so many times it felt automatic. The diner buzzed around them. A country song played low through the speakers. A couple argued softly near the window. Someone laughed at the counter. Clara studied him for a second longer than most women did. "Do you like it?" she asked. "It pays the bills." "That's not what I asked." He paused. "It's fine," he corrected. She didn't push. She just nodded and reached for her water. Outside, headlights swept past the front windows. South Congress was alive with Thursday night energy. Food trucks down the block. College kids crossing the street. "You from Austin?" she asked. "Moved here years ago." "You?" "Born and raised," she said. "My dad used to bring me here after high school football games. Same booth, actually." Daniel glanced around. The place felt small compared to the restaurants he usually avoided. No valet, no rooftop view, but she seemed at home. A waitress walked by and winked at Clara. "You behaving?" Clara laughed. "Always." Daniel smiled despite himself. "So," she said, leaning back, "why are you really on a blind date?" He didn't expect that. "Excuse me? Most men I meet are either proving something or hiding something. Which one are you?" The question landed light, but it hit deep. "I'm not hiding anything," he said quickly. She held his gaze. Silence stretched between them. Not awkward, just honest. He shifted. "I have a son, 8 years old." Her face softened. "That's important information." Didn't want to lead with it. "Why?" He shrugged. "Some people hear single dad and think complicated." "Life is complicated," she said simply. A little girl at the next table dropped her milk. It spilled across the floor. The father jumped up, apologizing. Clara didn't flinch. She grabbed napkins and helped without hesitation. Daniel watched her kneel beside the child. No annoyance, no performance, just care. When she returned to the booth, he asked, "You always jump in like that?" She shrugged. "It's milk, not a crisis." He laughed quietly. For a moment he forgot the script, forgot to downplay his life, forgot to test her. "You ever think about doing something else?" he asked. "Besides waitressing?" She tilted her head. "You say that like this isn't enough." "I didn't mean." "I know," she said gently. "But I like it. It's honest work. It pays for my mom's medication and my little brother's community college." That stopped him. "You take care of them?" "Someone has to." There it was again. Responsibility, not performance. Daniel felt something shift inside him. A small crack in the wall he'd built. When the check came, he reached for his wallet slowly. "I can split it," she offered. "I've got it," he said. He left a modest tip. On purpose. She noticed. Not the amount, the intention. As they stood to leave, she said something that caught him off guard. "You don't act broke," she said softly. His heart skipped. "You act careful." The words followed him all the way to his car parked 3 blocks away. Because for the first time, he wondered if she already saw through him, how long before she saw everything, and what would she do when she did. Daniel told himself it was just one good night. Nothing more. The next morning, he stood on the sidelines of Mason's soccer practice at Zilker Park. Parents held Starbucks cups. Kids chased the ball in uneven lines. The Austin skyline rose in the distance. "Dad, watch this," Mason shouted. Daniel clapped as his son kicked the ball hard, messy, full of effort. "You're getting faster," Daniel said when Mason ran back over. "Coach says I need confidence." Daniel smiled. Confidence matters. But his mind drifted. To a red booth. To a woman who said he didn't act broke. Just careful. He didn't text her that day. Or the next. He had rules. Never get comfortable too fast. Never let anyone close enough to ask questions. Protect Mason first. That night, his sister called. "How was the date?" she asked. "Fine." Fine like, never again, or fine like, you're trying not to smile. He stayed quiet. She laughed. "That good, huh?" "It's not about that. It's always about that." He changed the subject. Across town, Clara finished her shift and stepped out into the warm Texas night. South Congress was still alive. Music floated from a bar down the street. She checked her phone. No message. She told herself she didn't care. Men who hid parts of themselves weren't new to her. Still, she thought about him. About how he watched her help that little girl. About how he spoke about his son like he was the center of his world. That part felt real. 3 days passed. Daniel finally texted. "Dinner again?" She replied an hour later. "Only if you stop pretending." He stared at the screen. Pretending. He told himself she didn't know anything. She couldn't. At their second date, they met at a food truck park near Barton Springs. Picnic tables. String lights. Live acoustic music playing under the trees. Mason was at a sleepover. Daniel felt both free and uneasy. Clara showed up in sneakers and a soft gray sweater. "You look nervous," she said as she sat down. "I'm not. You are." He forced a small smile. They talked about simple things. Austin traffic, her brother's classes, Mason's obsession with space documentaries. "You ever take him to NASA in Houston?" she asked. "Not yet. You should. Kids need big dreams." He watched her as she spoke. "You don't talk like someone who's stuck," he said. "I'm not stuck," she replied. "I'm building." The word hit him harder than he expected. Building. He'd built companies. She was building people. He almost told her then. About the company. About the house in Westlake Hills. About the trust fund already set up in Mason's name. But fear crept in. What if everything changed the second she knew? What if her smile shifted? What if Mason got attached and it fell apart? So he kept quiet. When they stood to leave, she looked at him carefully. "You don't trust easy," she said. "That obvious?" "Yes." She stepped closer. "But neither do I." That surprised him. "Why?" She hesitated. "My dad left when things got hard," she said. "We lost the house in Pflugerville. Sometimes people say they'll stay, and then they don't." He felt that, because he stayed. Always. He walked her to her car. For a moment, they stood under the string lights, not touching. "You going to tell me what you're holding back?" she asked softly. He shook his head. "Not yet." She nodded once. "Okay. But secrets have a way of showing up anyway." As she drove away, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not fear of being used. Fear of losing someone who might actually see him. And deep down, he knew, the longer he waited, the harder the truth would hit. The third time they saw each other wasn't planned. It was a Saturday morning at H-E-B. Austin families filled the aisles. Kids begged for cereal. Country music played softly overhead. The smell of fresh tortillas drifted from the bakery. Daniel pushed his cart slowly, Mason walking beside him, tossing a bag of marshmallows inside. "Those weren't on the list," Daniel said. "They are now," Mason replied. Daniel smiled. He turned the corner near the produce section and froze. Clara stood near the apples, comparing prices. A reusable tote hung from her shoulder. Her hair was pulled into a loose bun. For a second, neither of them spoke. "Well," she said finally, smiling at Mason, "you must be the famous son." Mason looked up at his dad. "You talk about me?" "Sometimes," Daniel admitted. Clara knelt slightly. "I'm Clara." "Mason," he said. "Dad says I'm bad at math but good at space stuff." Daniel sighed. "I did not say you're bad at math." Clara laughed. "Space stuff sounds important." It was simple. Easy. Too easy. They ended up walking the aisles together, talking about nothing serious. Pasta sauce brands, school field trips, the rising price of eggs. Normal things. But Daniel felt something shift. Clara fit into his world without trying. At checkout, Mason ran ahead toward the exit doors. "I like her," he whispered to his dad. "She's not weird." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "That's high praise." Outside, Texas heat pressed down, even in early spring. Cars shimmered in the parking lot. Clara adjusted her bag. "He's a good kid." "He is." "You're a good dad." The words landed deeper than she knew. Before he could respond, Mason called out, "Dad, is that your car?" Daniel's stomach tightened, because parked 2 rows over wasn't the old SUV he usually drove on dates. It was the black Range Rover he used for meetings. He hadn't thought about it this morning. Clara followed Mason's gaze. The silence changed. "That yours?" she asked. Daniel hesitated. 1 second too long. "It's a company car," he said. "Tech support gives those out?" Her voice wasn't angry. It was steady. Mason looked between them, confused. Daniel forced a smile. "Buddy, grab the groceries." Mason obeyed, unaware of the tension rising. Clara studied Daniel's face. "Do you rent in Westlake too?" she asked quietly. He didn't answer. She nodded slowly. "You don't trust me," she said. It's not that. Then what is it? Cars passed behind them. A shopping cart clattered across the asphalt. He lowered his voice. I've dated women who changed the second they knew what I had. And you think I would? I don't know. That was the most honest thing he'd said. Her jaw tightened. You're not protecting your son, she said. You're protecting your fear. That hit. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Mason walked back over, holding a bag too heavy for him. You coming? The boy asked. Clara stepped back. I don't need your money, she said softly. But I do need truth. She turned and walked toward her car. Daniel stood still in the Texas heat, heart pounding, because for the first time the lie had cracked in front of his son. And the look on Mason's face, it wasn't confusion anymore. It was doubt. Have you ever been stuck with someone who made you feel too much? Tell me what happened. That night, the house in Westlake Hills felt bigger than usual. Too quiet. Daniel stood at the kitchen counter while Mason pushed peas around his plate. Dad. Yeah, buddy? Why did you lie? The question was soft, still hit hard. Daniel pulled out a chair and sat down across from him. I didn't lie, he started. Mason just looked at him. Daniel exhaled. Okay, I did. But not about the important stuff. What's the important stuff? That I love you. That I'm here. That I'm not going anywhere. Mason nodded slowly, but he didn't smile. Is Clara mad? He asked. I think she's hurt. Because of the car? Because I didn't tell her the truth. Mason thought for a second. Coach says if you mess up, you say sorry fast. Daniel almost laughed. Kids made it sound easy. Later that evening, after Mason went to bed, Daniel walked out onto the back patio. The Austin skyline glowed in the distance. Crickets hummed in the warm air. He scrolled through his phone. Photos of dates before Clara. Smiles that felt staged. Conversations that felt shallow. He thought about Clara at HEB. The way she didn't raise her voice. The way she didn't look impressed. Just disappointed. His phone buzzed. A text from his sister. You really like her, don't you? He didn't reply. Instead, he grabbed his keys. Across town, Clara sat on the steps outside her small duplex in East Austin. Her mom's oxygen machine hummed faintly inside. Her brother studied at the kitchen table. She stared at her phone. No message. Part of her expected that. Men who hid things rarely chased honesty. Headlights turned the corner. A black Range Rover pulled up slowly. Her heart tightened. Daniel stepped out. No dress shirt. No polished image. Just jeans and regret. He walked toward her but stopped a few feet away. I'm sorry, he said. No excuses. No defense. She didn't speak. I built a company, he continued. Sold it. Invested well. I don't have to work anymore. She folded her arms, listening. After my wife died, I went on dates. The moment women found out about the money, everything shifted. They asked different questions. Looked at me differently. And you decided I'd do the same, she said. I decided not to risk Mason. Silence settled between them. I grew up watching bills stack on our kitchen table, Clara said quietly. When my dad left, we lost everything. Money didn't protect us. It disappeared. Daniel stepped closer. I wasn't testing you, he said. I was testing the world. You can't build trust by starting with a lie. He nodded. I know. The porch light flickered softly. A dog barked somewhere down the block. My mom's medication costs more than my rent, she said. My brother's tuition doesn't pay itself. I don't care that you're wealthy. She looked him straight in the eyes. I care that you didn't think I was strong enough to handle the truth. That hurt more than anger, because she was right. If you want to be in my life, she said, come as you are, not smaller, not guarded, just real. He felt something break open inside him. Not pride, fear. I don't know how to do that, he admitted. She softened slightly. Then learn. The air felt different now. Not fixed, but honest. If you believe that real wealth is about courage, not cash, stay with this story. Because what he does next will show whether he's rich in more than money. Daniel stood there, heart steady but exposed. For the first time since his wife passed, he wasn't protecting himself. He was risking something, and he knew. The next move would decide everything. Daniel didn't sleep. Austin was quiet at 2 a.m. The hills were dark. The house felt still except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint buzz of the baby monitor he still kept in Mason's room out of habit. He lay awake staring at the ceiling. Come as you are. He had money. He had property. He had security. But when Clara asked for honesty, he felt exposed. The next morning, he drove Mason to school in the Range Rover. No hiding. No switching cars. Are we still seeing Clara? Mason asked from the back seat. I hope so, Daniel said. Then don't be weird, Mason replied. Daniel smiled. Noted. After drop-off, instead of going home, Daniel drove downtown. Glass towers reflected the Texas sun. His name still sat on one of those buildings, etched in silver letters near the entrance of Brooks Digital. He hadn't stepped inside in months. When he walked through the doors, employees straightened. A few whispered. He nodded but didn't stay. He went straight to the foundation office on the second floor. His company had started a scholarship fund years ago. Quiet, private, mostly for tech students. He stood in front of the director. I want to expand it, he said. How? Single parents, medical debt relief, community college grants. The director blinked. That's a big shift. Make it bigger, Daniel said. Use my shares. Back in East Austin, Clara was finishing her shift early. Her brother had called. Mom's dizzy again, he said over the phone. I think we need to take her in. Clara didn't panic. She grabbed her bag and drove straight to St. David's Medical Center. Hospital waiting rooms in America all feel the same. Fluorescent lights. Coffee that tastes burned. A TV playing daytime talk shows no one watches. She held her mom's hand while nurses ran tests. Bills flashed through her mind. Insurance gaps. Copays. She didn't text Daniel. She didn't want help. An hour later, her phone buzzed. It was him. She ignored it. Then another message came. I'm outside. Her heart skipped. She stepped into the hallway. Daniel stood near the vending machines, hands in his pockets. How did you know? She asked. Mason mentioned your mom's health last week. I figured if something happened, you wouldn't say. She crossed her arms. You don't have to fix this. I'm not here to fix it. Then why are you here? He stepped closer. Because this is what real looks like. Hard days. Hospital chairs. No pretending. Her eyes searched his face. I expanded the foundation this morning, he added. For families like yours. Not because of you. Because you reminded me what matters. She blinked. I don't want your money, Daniel. I know. He swallowed. I want to stand here with you. That's it. For a moment, the hallway felt smaller, quieter. But then a nurse walked out. Family of Maria Hayes? Clara turned quickly. We need to talk about her insurance coverage, the nurse said gently. Clara's face changed. Daniel saw it. Fear, pride, exhaustion. She stepped forward alone. And that's when he realized. Loving someone who carries everything on their own means learning when to step back. And when to fight beside them. Sometimes love isn't about writing a check. Sometimes it's about proving you're not going anywhere. Have you ever lost someone because you were too afraid to fight? Comment below. The hospital lights were harsh. Too bright. Too honest. Clara stood at the billing desk while a woman in blue scrubs explained coverage gaps in calm, practiced tones. Words like deductible and out-of-pocket maximum floated in the air. Daniel stayed a few steps behind her. Not interrupting. Not reaching for his wallet. Just present. Clara signed forms with steady hands, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. Years of holding everything together had taught her how to look strong. When they finally stepped back into the hallway, she leaned against the wall. She'll be okay, she said quickly. It's just dehydration and stress. Daniel nodded. That's good. Silence sat between them. Not distant, just heavy. You didn't argue, she said after a moment. About what? About paying. He shook his head. You said you didn't want to be fixed. She studied him carefully. I don't. I know. He stepped closer but kept space between them. I grew up thinking money solved things, he said. And when it didn't save my wife, I stopped trusting what it could do. She hadn't heard him talk about his wife before. She got sick fast, he continued. Cancer. We had the best doctors in Houston. The best treatments. None of it mattered. His voice stayed steady, but his eyes didn't. I couldn't buy more time, so I tried to control everything else. Clara felt her chest tighten. That's why you pretend, she said softly. Yes. Not defensive. Just honest. Down the hallway, a cart rolled past. The scent of sanitizer hung in the air. A child cried somewhere near the elevators. For a few long seconds, neither of them spoke. Daniel looked at the floor, then back at her. I don't want to live small anymore, he said. Not with you. Not with Mason. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. I listed the West Lake house this morning. Her eyes widened. Why? It's too big. Too empty. It was built for a life that doesn't exist anymore. The words hung between them. I'm moving closer to Mason's school, he added. Smaller place. Less show. More home. She searched his face for performance. There was none. You don't have to shrink your life for me, she said. I'm not shrinking, he replied. I'm choosing. The elevator doors opened behind them. Nurses moved in and out. Life went on. He didn't reach for her. Didn't rush. He just stood there open. For the first time since they met, he wasn't testing her. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't proving anything. He was simply there. Clara felt something inside her shift. All her life she had been the strong one, the provider, the steady force. No one had ever offered to stand beside her without trying to lead. You scare me, she admitted. Why? Because this feels real. He nodded slowly. It is. Footsteps echoed down the hall as her brother waved them over. Mom's asking for you, he said. Clara looked back at Daniel. This was the moment. Not about money. Not about pride. About whether she would let someone share the weight. Courage isn't loud. It's quiet. It's choosing to trust when you've learned not to. She reached for his hand. Just for a second. And didn't pull away. But love built on truth still needs one final step. And what happens next will decide if this becomes a story about fear or forever. Spring came early to Austin that year. Bluebonnets lined the highways. The air felt lighter, warmer, like the city itself had taken a deep breath. Maria Hayes recovered fully. The hospital bills were handled, not by a dramatic gesture, not by a secret payment, but through the new foundation Daniel expanded. Clara filled out the paperwork herself. No special treatment, no hidden favors, just support. That mattered to her. 2 months later, Daniel moved into a smaller house near Barton Hills. Nothing flashy. A wide porch, a backyard big enough for Mason to kick a soccer ball. The first night there, boxes still unpacked, Mason stood in the kitchen and looked around. I like this one better, he said. Why? Daniel asked. It feels louder. Daniel laughed. Louder? Yeah, like people are supposed to be here. Daniel felt that in his chest. Because this house wasn't built for image. It was built for living. That Sunday, Clara came over for dinner. Not as a test. Not as a secret. Mason helped grill burgers while Daniel burned the first batch and blamed the wind. Clara laughed the way she always did. Full, unfiltered. After dinner, the three of them sat on the porch steps watching the sun dip behind the trees. Mason leaned against Clara's shoulder without thinking. She froze for half a second, then relaxed. Daniel noticed. He didn't interrupt it. Dad says money doesn't fix everything, Mason said casually. Clara glanced at Daniel. He's right, she replied. Mason thought for a moment. Then what does? Clara looked at Daniel before answering. Showing up, she said. Even when it's hard. Daniel held her gaze. Because that was the lesson he almost missed. Wealth isn't the size of your house in Westlake. It's not the number in your bank account. It's not the car parked in the driveway. It's the courage to stop hiding. It's the choice to stay when leaving would be easier. Later that night, after Mason went to bed, Daniel and Clara stood in the quiet kitchen. The window was open. Crickets filled the dark. I used to think protecting my son meant controlling everything, Daniel said. And now? She asked. Now I think it means teaching him what real strength looks like. She stepped closer. And what's that? He didn't hesitate this time. Honesty, partnership, love. She smiled softly. You learned fast. I had a good teacher. She shook her head. No, you chose to listen. There was no grand speech, no fireworks, just two people who had faced fear and decided not to let it win. He reached for her hand. This time there was no tension, no doubt, only warmth. If stories about choosing love over pride matter to you, stay connected. Because the richest lives aren't built on money. They're built on who you stand beside when things get hard. Weeks later, at Mason's school fundraiser, Daniel stood near the bake sale table while Clara organized volunteers. Parents whispered when they learned who he was. It didn't matter. Clara didn't treat him differently. Mason didn't brag. They simply worked together. When the event ended, Mason ran up holding a jar of donations. Look, he said proudly. We raised enough for new library books. Daniel knelt beside him. That's real wealth, he said. Clara met his eyes across the crowd. Not impressed. Not intimidated. Just proud. And for the first time in years, Daniel felt rich in a way no sale, no deal, no account balance had ever given him. He wasn't pretending anymore. He wasn't shrinking. He wasn't testing. He was present. And that changed everything. Do you believe some people are worth the wait? Drop a heart in the comments if this story hit you. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.